Hey guys, I'm here to get into a film called Leaving Las Vegas, which was released in the year 1995, directed by Mike Figgis. And this is actually one of the most haunting and disturbing films I've ever seen, which actually maybe takes the foundation of a lot of stuff like Martin Scorsese was exploring in the 70s and 80s to even more like disturbing, haunting places. I remember seeing this for the first time when I was 17, and this just left a timelessly haunting mark on me in a lot of ways, where I felt very scarred by it. Just because it feels very emotionally devastating. It feels like there's a real hell living in this film. There's no way out of it in a lot of ways, which is the darkest end of the 90s. There was like an extremely harsh, dark extent of like the 90s, and I think there's a level where it's just too far, like a lot of grunge was onto this foundation particularly. This film almost feels like it's on the end of that grunge level, but I feel like the film fully agrees that like this stuff is harsh and ugly, bleak, and I think I was remember seeing this when I was 17 and just feeling disturbed for a few days. Like I feel like I didn't want to leave my room for wow, I just really made me live in intense isolation. It's one of Nicolas Cage's greatest roles because, man, he hits hard. He's one of my top 5 favorite actors of all time. I mean, just looking through his filmography, he's just done one of those influential, important actors of all time between Raising Arizona, Wild at Heart, Bringing Out the Dead, amongst many of his long legs. In this case, this is just really one of the best I've ever seen at just a depressing sort of character. You could say like he's really at a devastating sort of place. It's one of the most depressing love stories ever made, and it even gives me a lot of and looking at it now, I find maybe one of the most redemptive films ever made. I think going through it was so cathartic for me and influenced and changed my life for the better in so many ways that it goes perfectly with the Blue Velvet influence I've been looking for, which is like kind of cathartic to go through the dark side of things. And it's just a perfect piece of mid-90s filmmaking where it's just like a big-time heartbreaker. That's the epitome of a heartbreaker. Nicolas Cage just said his all-time best as well, and Elizabeth Shue's also fantastic in this. I mean, this is just really a perfect depiction of just going crazy to the end, just going completely mad, in a lot of ways, and feeling like there may be no way out, really, but you don't mind because you might just get sucked into something that's like that might dominate you in a healthy, beautiful way, even when you may choose to just continue moving forward with your own madness. It's like, well, at least he finds something maybe in life that he never found wouldn't have found anywhere else. It's like going through the dark journey, but it's actually worth going through it, and it's not like a strange or perverted sense. It's rather just like a healthy, organic, like, the person could grow up from going through this, and this is like a more devastating, like, unfortunately it had to be this depressing of a realization, like, through this particular project. But I think in real life it sort of manifests to just like a desire for a more healthy, optimistic version of this kind of understanding that Nicolas Cage perhaps finds in this journey, and it really, really reveals itself on a rewatch. And Elizabeth Shue, for that matter, too, I think they both mutually find this understanding, and love, this intense love for each other in this way. And this is really a perfect film, perfectly executed. Just hits as hard as difficultly. In a lot of the 90s, it's just, again, going for 70s. This is almost like a 90s film that really just wanted to be like the harshest end of the 70s. It just naturally is about one of the most disturbing, probably the most disturbing romance film I've ever seen in my life. It's like watching this, I see a lot of hell on earth living in this film in a lot of ways. And yeah, and it's just like a lot of pieces of art in 1995 are kind of onto some of that hell on earth. Films like Casino by Martin Scorsese, and Radiohead, like Tom York wrote the song Straight Fade Out, and he claims that he felt like he was expressing Satan itself when he wrote that. It scares him to death. And this film kind of feels that way to me too. It's like, it's just horrifying what this film is onto. And it's just about one of the most powerful, influential pieces of filmmaking of the 90s I've ever seen. So not for the faint of heart, honestly. This is hyper disturbing. Like, a lot of this feels very ugly. This atmosphere feels very horrifying, but it's very essential, I think. It's like a groundbreakingly just close-up depiction of what the kind of hell that I just really genuinely believe a lot of rock stars were suffering through at certain points, phases of their lives. I think, particularly, I often trace this feeling to a lot of like Bob Dylan's music. It's like Blonde on Blonde era, 1966. He was just feeling particularly harsh and crazy, in a lot of ways. Like the world around, like he was like kind of feeling like the king, but feeling depressed because he just, couldn't just simply be fulfilled with just having people who love him, dearly. And he just needs to love them too, in his own like, healthy kind of way, as you could say. This is just a perfect film from start to finish. And it's just, if you're interested in something that'll particularly break your heart, that you'll find redemptive qualities through that, and this is just strongly recommended.